Hello everybody, hope today finds you fine and dandy and smiling and full of beans. Let's see what we have for you today. As I sat down today in my workspace, I found no Nerf gun bullets today. I found some Scooby-Doo stickers and a sock, which at least appears to be clean. So we'll move that over to one side. Strange classroom that I seem to have, isn't it? Mind you, not that our classroom was much tidier, especially my desk. Anyway, I should feel quite at home, shouldn't I, with everything everywhere. So, what have we got today? First thing is a message. So, by the time you watch this, I should have sent an email to your parents to explain that I can provide you with access to go on to a website which helps you practice your times tables by playing games. Okay, now it might be that your parents don't want you to use that website. It might be that you've got enough on your plate as it is at the moment and they might say, well, have a look at that another time. Or it might be that you're given access to this immediately. So just a few words about that. The idea is once you log in, so you'll have a username and a login, a username and a password, which I will send to your parents. Everybody has got a different one, and it's not the same as Matifique. Okay, it's another one. So once you've logged in, you should see our class come up, 3EB, and I have already set up our part of that website so that when you play games, it should practice the times tables with you that you're familiar with. So for most of you, I've set it up so that you're practicing your 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, 6s, 8s, and 10s, which is what we've done so far. For a couple of you, I've kept it a little bit easier and practiced the ones you're more familiar with. And for another few people, I've thrown in some other ones like 7s and 9s to keep you on your toes and get you thinking in case you say, oh, this is too easy. So I've set it up in that way. If you play, you don't have to at all. And it does look quite complicated. I haven't explored all of it because it's a massive site, but the idea is that it'll ask you to choose yourself a name, and you will take the name of an invented rock star. The website is called Times Tables Rock Stars. So you become a rock star, and as you play your games, you will become more and more famous as a rock star, depending on how well you do on your times tables. Okay, so all the words around it will be about concerts and where you're playing your concert, and every concert is just another maths game. Okay, but it's on this theme of becoming a rock star. So the better you do, the quicker you get, the more progress you make, you will become a more famous rock star. Okay, and there are different ways of playing what really boils down to the same kind of game with your times tables. So if you play in the garage area, the play area, it should be fine just to get the ball rolling. Okay, the more I explore it myself, I'll get back to you if there's anything more interesting that I find with it. But I know some of the children who've used it and really get into it, and it's really improved their times tables because it's all about getting to the answers quickly. Okay, so what else with that? Remember, if you're playing it, remember your number families. So if it says, I don't know, 4 times 7, and you think, oh, I haven't done my 7 times table, 4 times 7 is the same as 7 times 4. And you've done your 4 times table, haven't you? Okay, so think about inversions. They'll sometimes throw in a division question linked to the number families as well. So it might say 40 divided by 10. Okay, and if you think of your number family, 40 divided by 10, that means 10 times something is 40, or 4 times something is 40. Okay, so you have to use your number families for those. You might find when you first try it, you're really quite slow. Doesn't matter, you will get quicker and quicker. Okay, so don't be disheartened if you think you're a bit slow the first time round and they tell you that you haven't become very famous straight away. You have to bear with it. Okay, the other thing to remember is that when we've practiced our times tables, we've gone as far as 10 times, whatever it might be, 10 times 3, 10 times 10, 10 times 6. They go up as far as 12 times. Okay, so you might want to have a little bit of a think about that before you even start. And you think, okay, I know that 10 times 6 is 60. Now 11 times 6 is going to be another 6 on top of the 60, isn't it? 66. And 12 times 6 is going to be another 6 counted on again. It's going to take you up to 72. Okay, so you'll get into that as well. I hope you enjoy it. I know some children who play in the UK who absolutely love it. And it could be as well that your parents say, do you know what? You've done enough activities on the computer. I don't want you to do things on the screen. So absolutely, if your parents say, I don't think that's a good idea for you right now, then absolutely you do what your parents suggest. They will know and choose the best thing for you. Okay, so that should be out there today for anybody who's ready and wants to take up that challenge. Now, more maths. We're going to start today something new, brand new, I think. I can't imagine you will have touched this in year 2. And the subject is called probability. So it makes you think already of the word probable. So how probable something is how likely it is to happen, okay? And you might think it doesn't sound very mathematical. You're right in a way, it doesn't sound mathematical to start because we're going to be using mainly words to discuss probability rather than numbers. But as you go through, especially into the 4th year and the 5th year, you'll deal with probability using numbers. But for that to make good sense to you, you need to start off really with probability using words. So there is a PowerPoint for you to watch about probability using words today. There's an exercise for you to do, and we'll have a quick look at it now. Okay, so how likely is something to happen? We think, yeah, that would happen today. It's possible. It's definitely going to happen. It's impossible. There's no way that's going to happen. Maybe just as likely one way or the other. There's a chance. There's half a chance. They're words and ideas that you're already familiar with, but we're going to try and focus on certain words and a particular way of expressing it. Okay, so on the paper behind me, I've put a line which we're going to call a scale. Okay, it's a line that travels from one end to another. At one end, we've got the number, so I've already got some numbers in 0, we've got the symbol 0, and at the other end, we've got number 1. Okay, and halfway along, we have a half as well. So at this end, we're showing on the scale that the chance of something happening, the probability is impossible. There is no way that what we say is will happen is happening. So for example, I stay in bed all day today. That's already impossible because I've already got up. Okay, so I stay in bed today is impossible. Okay, I don't watch YouTube today is impossible because you're already watching it, as an example. Okay, right at the other end, we've got certain, definite. It happens, definitely, certainly. So we could have, I watch YouTube today. That is certain, isn't it? Okay, because you're doing it right now. I get up today. It is certain because you're up doing it, unless you're watching it in bed, and then we'd have to change. The sun rises today. It's certain. Okay. Now, there are other things which aren't impossible nor certain, but somewhere in between. Okay, and depending on what the event is that we're referring to, and sometimes depending on the person, it could appear at different places on the chart. So, for instance, I wear pajamas all day. Now, if you've already got dressed, it's impossible. Okay. If sometimes you, like half the time, you stay in your pajamas all day, and sometimes you get dressed and you're still in your pajamas right now, maybe there's an even chance, there's half a chance that you wear your pajamas all day. You don't know yet. Okay. And if you always, always, always stay in your pajamas all day, and there's no reason why you would get dressed today, then maybe you would say you're certain or very, very close to certain. Certain is a very difficult one, okay? Because for all you know, let's imagine you're in your pajamas right now and you, so far during this lockdown, haven't got dressed. We don't really, really, really know if maybe later today something could happen, which means you have to get dressed, okay? So you could maybe go right close to certain, but not on it. I hope that's not been too complicated, getting carried away with talking about pajamas, but it seemed an example that we could use. Okay, so impossible, certain, at the ends of the scale. 0 end, 1. Okay, and this chart doesn't go beyond 1. That's as far as you can go on this scale. Okay, if it's in the middle, there really is just as much chance that way as that way. We can say it's half a chance. And the probability words that we use in maths for this are even chance. There is an even chance. Okay, so a really good example of that is, if I take this coin, okay, it's a 20-cent coin and it's got a 20 on the front and another symbol on the back. Okay, now if I toss the coin, there is an even chance of it landing with a 20 up or the symbol side up. Okay, what do you think? Which side do you think is going to land facing up when I toss or throw the coin on the floor? You tell me. Okay, so some of you will have said 20, some of you will have said the other side. There is an even chance. There's no reason why it should go one way or the other. Let me see what we've got. Oh, yeah, the 20 side is facing up. Okay, so the way it worked out this time, there was an even chance, but the 20 faced up. Okay. Now, there are other things that happen which we know are more likely to go one way or the other. So, other words that we can use on our scale are, so somewhere around here, it's not impossible, but it's less than an even chance. We can say it's unlikely to happen. Okay, unlikely to happen. So, for an example, I could say, I eat ice cream today. Now, I think that's unlikely because A, it's quite cold here today. Also, I haven't got much ice cream in the freezer. I have got some in the freezer, so it is possible, but I think it's unlikely that I'm going to eat it today. You could have the same statement, I eat ice cream today, and it could already, for you, be certain. Maybe you've already had some, okay? It could be for you, even chance, because you're just as likely to have some today as not have some today, okay? Impossible could be if you haven't got ice cream in the house and you know that nobody is going out shopping today. And in this situation, nobody's going to bring it round for you. Okay, we are in quite an unusual situation at the moment. And other people, it could be likely. Maybe they quite often at the moment have ice cream. Okay, they haven't had it yet today. There is some in the house. Maybe, it's quite likely that mum or dad might let you have some. So we can use these words here. Okay, now on your PowerPoint, they've also included very unlikely and very likely. Okay, so also you can throw in the very as well, and you can obviously very unlikely is more unlikely than unlikely. but not impossible. And very likely is more likely than likely, but not certain. Okay, I'm leaving those ones up because on the worksheet that you have to do, they're the ones that you need to fill in. So you've got a couple of things to do. You've got a scale similar to this. You've got these words, but you've got to write them in the correct area. Not exactly, but in the correct area of the scale. Okay, so that you know that impossible is at one end, certain is at the other, likely is the one that's in between even chance and certain, and so forth. When you look at that worksheet, that should make quite good sense to you. If you're not printing it off, no problem. Draw your own scale on a piece of paper using a straight horizontal line and the words, these words that we've got here, and there's the same words that you've got on your sheet. Okay. Then there is a table, which again you could do on the sheet, or you could just write out columns on a piece of paper, no problem. And if I remember rightly, I have put an event as an example and said whether I think that event, in my case, for instance, is impossible, unlikely, even chance, likely, or certain. So there's a list of events, and then you need to write next to it, for you, what is the probability of that event happening? Okay, some of them would be the same for everybody, the same answer, and others, maybe it depends on you. Okay, or your perception. Okay, so have a go at that. That's our introduction to probability. Okay, which is written like that. How probable something is. Probable is the same as likely. Okay, probably. Okay, and probability is the name of this maths concept that we've started to look at today. Okay, and then we'll do some more of that tomorrow as well. Good. What else? Heritage. Heritage today. There have been some more heritage projects popping up on the Padlet, which I'm enjoying reading. Turkish tradition, Chinese tradition. So that's all to do with what people do, how people act to commemorate a particular event. Might be linked to religion, might not be. And then somebody has written about a piece of architecture, a building, a bridge from their culture, Spanish culture. And really interesting to read. So take a peek at those, crack on with your own. Maybe we'll see it on the Padlet, maybe we won't. So that's lots of hard work. And if you've already done, woohoo! Just enjoy looking at everybody else's. Then L1 English. Okay, so briefly, you have now finished reading chapter 4. And your task today is to plan your version, your idea of how chapter 5 will go. Okay, so first of all, a chapter is not going to take you to the end of the story. A chapter is just the next big step in the story. Now, bearing in mind that chapter 4 finishes with Leela finding the grotto of the fire fiend. Okay, let's just go over the last sentence there. A gust of sulphur-laden smoke came billowing out, and Leela knew she had found her goal. It was the grotto of the fire fiend. So you guys know she's been searching for this place for a long time, and at last, after much difficulty, she has found this grotto. It's like a cave. She almost stumbled across it the way that she's found it on the side of the mountain. So we can assume that chapter 5 is going to be all about Leela discovering what's inside the grotto of the fire fiend, and possibly discovering the fire fiend. A fiend is another word, a name for a monster. Okay, not friend, fiend. So your job this morning is to just plan it, to get an idea of where you think that chapter will go. So you know the setting is the grotto of the fire fiend. You don't need to think about where else it's going to be set. You know that your character is Leela, possibly the fire fiend is going to be another character in that chapter if she finds the fire fiend in the grotto of the fire fiend. Maybe she finds another character. Maybe other characters arrive. Don't use too many characters, otherwise the chapter will become complicated. Okay, there's another tip. And I suspect the end of the chapter will take us to the end of us finding out about the grotto. So maybe the chapter will end with her leaving the grotto. Maybe it will take us just after her leaving the grotto, but not too far. Okay, maybe she'll still be in the grotto when the chapter finishes. So this isn't an enormous piece of writing that you're going to be preparing. We don't want to get to the end of the story, only the next chapter, okay? Only the part about the grotto. On the email your parents received, there were 2 ideas of ways that you could plan. So instead of just having it all zooming around in your head, you might use the storyboard planner, which has got spaces for a little bit of writing and then maybe just a snapshot picture to see what your steps are going to be as you take us through the chapter. And you don't need to use all of those little boxes, you might just use some. Okay, it's a plan, so it doesn't have to involve beautiful artwork. I know some of you can't stop yourself from doing beautiful artwork, and that's lovely. But unless you have the time and the inclination, it's not about the art unless you want it to be. Okay, it's about just a way of recording your ideas for your plan of that chapter. There's another planner which is just simply 5 boxes saying what's your setting, the grotto, who's your character or characters, Leela, and then the beginning of that chapter, the middle of that chapter, the end of that chapter. And the planner box, remember, is not there for you to just write out every single word and then just to copy it up later. The planner is there for you to just jot down ideas. Doesn't need to be tidy, doesn't need to have good punctuation on the planner, doesn't need to be in full sentences. It's just boom, idea. Where are my ideas going? And then when you come to write it up tomorrow, you can get your planner out and think, oh yeah, that was a good idea. Or, that was a good idea, but now I've got a better one and I'm going to change that little bit. I'm going to tweak that little bit. Okay, so today is getting your ideas. You'll need thinking time and then jotting them down so that you don't forget them, all ready for writing up tomorrow and Friday. So tomorrow and Friday, I'll remind you I'll be looking out for your punctuation and maybe trying to remember to use paragraphs. But today, just think about your planning. I will be really interested to read your description of the grotto. The story has been building us up so much to find out about this grotto. Please tell me about it in your chapter. Describe it, use your senses, okay? What does it look like? What does it sound like? Does it have a smell? What does it feel like to Leela? Okay? I'll be surprised if it has a taste, but you never know. Okay, so I will be looking out for descriptions. So in your plan your description of everything that she finds in that grotto. Okay? Adjectives are good for description. Remember, we talked about adjectives yesterday. Right, that's that, I think. L2 people and L1 who do other languages, thank you for bearing with us during those little sessions. I'm sure as well you might sometimes pull the cursor over that until you see the red glasses, meaning that we're going to have some story if you so wish. So until I hear otherwise, I think I'll crack on with another Just So story. You remember the author? Rudyard Kipling, author of The Jungle Book. So yesterday we had the myth of how the the rhinoceros got its saggy skin, and why they always look quite so grumpy, not scientific, all made up. So I think today we might do how the camel got his hump. Okay, and it starts off with a picture there of the hump of the camel. These are he said Roald Dahl, Rudyard Kipling's illustrations, he himself. Okay, I'll also show you that even though I don't read them every time he does a picture, he also gives a very detailed, possibly over-detailed for us, description of his picture. Okay, so I'll show you the pictures each time as well. Remember, if you hear tricky words, I'm not going to stop. We're just going to enjoy the sound of them because that's why Rudyard Kipling put them in. How the camel got his hump. Ow, this is the next tale. No, there is an N hidden somewhere there. There we go. Now, this is the next tale, and it tells how the camel got his big hump. I nearly said how the camel got his big hump, didn't I? I think I'll just start the whole sentence again. Now, this is the next tale, and it tells how the camel got his big hump. In the beginning of years, when the world was so new and all, and the animals were just beginning to work for man, there was a camel, and he lived in the middle of a howling desert because he did not want to work. And besides, he was a howler himself. So he ate sticks and thorns and tamarisks and milkweed and prickles. Most excruciatingly idle he was. Idle is another word for lazy. And when anybody spoke to him, he just said, humph, just humph, and no more. Presently the horse came to him on Monday morning with a saddle on his back and a bit in his mouth and said, Camel, oh camel, come out and trot like the rest of us. Humph, said the camel, and the horse went away and told the man. Presently the dog came to the camel with a stick in his mouth and said, Camel, oh camel, come and fetch and carry like the rest of us. Humph, said the camel, and the dog went away and told the man. Presently the ox came to him with the yoke on his neck and said, Camel, oh camel, come and plough like the rest of us. You know what's going to be said. Humph, said the camel, and the ox went away and told the man. At the end of the day, the man called the horse and the dog and the ox together and said, You three, oh three, I'm very sorry for you with the world so new and all, but that hump thing in the desert can't work, or he would have been here by now, so I am going to leave him alone, and you must all work double time to make up for it. Now, that made the three very angry with the world so new and all, and they held a palaver and an indaba and a panchayat and a powwow at the edge of the desert. They had a big talk. And the camel came chewing milkweed, most excruciatingly idle, lazy, and laughed at them. And he said, Humph, and went away again. Presently there came along the Djinn in charge of all deserts, rolling in a cloud of dust. Djinns always travel that way because it is magic, and he stopped to palaver and powwow with the three. Okay, and this is a picture of the Djinn. This is the Djinn. Djinn of all deserts, said the horse. Is it right for anyone to be idle, lazy, with the world so new and all? Certainly not, said the Dean. Well, said the horse, there's a thing in the middle of the howling desert, and he's a howler himself. He has a long neck and long legs, and he hasn't done a stroke of work since Monday morning. He won't trot. Ooh, said the Dean, whistling. That's my camel, for all the gold in Arabia. And what does he say about it? He says, Hump, said the dog, and he won't fetch, and he won't carry. Does he say anything else? Only Hump, and he won't plough, said the ox. Very good, said the Dean. I'll hump him if you will kindly wait a minute. The Dean rolled himself up in his dust cloak and took a bearing across the desert and found the camel most excruciatingly idle, looking at his own reflection in a pool of water. My long and bubbling friend, said the Dean, what's this I hear of your doing no work, with the world so new and all? Hump, said the camel. The Dean sat down with his chin in his hand and began to think of great magic, while the camel looked at his own reflection in the pool of water. You've given the 3 extra work ever since Monday morning, all on account of your excruciating idleness, said the Djinn, and he went on thinking magics with his chin in his hand. And the camel said, Hump! I shouldn't say that again if I were you, said the Djinn. You might say it once too often. Bubbles, I want you to work. And what did the camel say, everybody? The camel said, Hump! Again. But no sooner had he said it than he saw on his back that he was so proud of, puffing up and puffing up into a great big lolloping hump. Do you see that? Said the Djinn. That is your very own hump that you've brought upon your own very self by not working. Today is Thursday, and you've done no work since Monday, when the work began. Now you are going to work. How can I, said the camel, with this hump on my back? That's made on purpose, said the Djinn, all because you missed those 3 days. You will be able to work now for 3 days without eating, because you can live on your hump. And don't you ever say I never did anything for you. Now come out of the desert and go to the 3 and behave yourself. Hump yourself. And the camel humped himself, hump and all, and went away to join the 3. And from that day to this, O dearly beloved, the camel always wears a hump. We call it a hump now, not to hurt his feelings. But he has never yet caught up with the 3 days that he missed at the beginning of the world, and he has never yet learned how to behave. Voila. Okay, so hopefully you enjoyed that fiction, myth, totally made up story, but I quite like the idea that's how the camel got his hump. And they do seem to not behave themselves, camels. If you ever come across a camel, they spit and they pull on their reins and they run around when they're not meant to do. So yeah, camels don't necessarily behave themselves. Maybe now we know why. Right, you have got plenty of work to do. Good luck, buon lavoro a tutti, and I shall catch up with you tomorrow. Bye.